Okay, first AP lecture for the year. I'm going to call this one Comparing Colonial Sections. We're specifically talking about the English colonies on the eastern seaboard. We need to know three sections: the northern or New England colonies, the middle or the mid-Atlantic region, and then the southern colonies, part of which is also known as the Chesapeake region. Okay, first slide I want to show you is just some numbers on how many English migrants were coming to the New World. We call this the Great Migration. You can see that the majority of migrants actually came to the West Indies, to the Caribbean. This is kind of following the Spanish and Portuguese lead and the discoveries of Christopher Columbus, but significant numbers, tens of thousands, come to the eastern seaboard, New England and the Chesapeake. The settlers who settled the New England colonies settled this region. When we talk about the New England colonies, there's four of them that we need to know, like four that are going to make up the future 13 colonies. You need to know Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts Bay, which is the big one, and New Hampshire. You can also see on this map that there were many different communities and smaller colonies that either kind of sprouted off from those four or maybe were absorbed into those four. But in general, this is the New England region. Now, I don't have a slide for the middle colonies, but there are four middle colonies. That's New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. These obviously geographically are right in between the two northern and southern sections. They are very mixed and diverse, both in terms of ethnicity. There's also, Swedish migrants and Dutch migrants and even a French presence in some places. And they're also, very diverse in terms of their religions and their jobs and things like that. The southern colonies, now there's 5 of these. So 4 in the north, 4 in the middle, 5 in the south. The 2 big ones are what's known as the Chesapeake region, Virginia and Maryland. They're at the top of the South. And then North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia make up the rest. We need to identify these 3 regions because while they're all largely English, they are unique in their characteristics and traits. They develop their own kind of colonial identity. And so here's an example. Before we get to the example, this is a quick chart, kind of shows you some dates. It's got the 13 colonies listed on the left, and then a few other things. So that's a good kind of summary of English colonization. But here's an example. Let me move myself out of here of a short answer question that was on the AP exam. It says, explain one similarity between British colonies in the Chesapeake region, that's the South, and in New England, the North. And 1607 to 1754 is our time period. So one similarity. Then part B said, explain an important difference. And then finally, this is kind of our argumentation aspect where we've made a claim. Now we've got to support it. Explain one factor that accounts for the difference indicated in B. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, when we're identifying similarities and differences, it's important to key on specifics factors, maybe economic systems, maybe geography or climate. Maybe you look at the nature of religion, whether it was super important or certain denominations that had heavy influence. You might look at interactions with Native Americans. So, for example, explain one important similarity. We might say, colonists in both New England and in the Chesapeake region, when they showed up, found out they weren't alone. And they both had to engage with people groups, Native Americans, that were already existing in the New World. This usually led to competition for resources and sadly, violence and decimation or migration of Native American populations. That's a similarity that took place both in New England and in the Chesapeake region. Explain one difference. Well, here we might talk about the geography of the 2 regions and the economic systems that came from that. So, one difference would be New England and Chesapeake regions had different climates, and as a result of these different climates, it led to different types of commercial opportunities and systems. C, explain one factor that accounts for this. Now we can flesh it out a little bit more, and we can say in the South they had a warmer climate with a long growing season that lent itself to cash crop agriculture such as tobacco plantations. However, in New England, they had harsh cold winters, rocky soil, so they really couldn't grow huge amounts of crops, but they did have access to harbors, timber, shipping industry, and other um, um, economic endeavors of that like. Okay. This is an example of a short answer question. I always tell students, answer each part in 2 to 3 sentences. So altogether, you're probably looking at maybe 6 to 9 or 10 sentences. On an AP exam, this will be timed. You'll have about 12 to 15 minutes to answer a question like this. Last thing, and I'll be out of here, try to keep this under 7 minutes. Why does this matter? We need to understand that each region did develop unique characteristics, because when we get to 1775 in the American Revolution, the colonies are going to have to unite to rebel against Great Britain. And if we don't have an understanding of these unique differences, we won't have an appreciation for the obstacles and the efforts that were made to unite the future United States against the British Empire.